A tornado outbreak, yes, a tornado outbreak will be possible tomorrow on September the 6th across portions of New England in the northeastern United States. In this video, we're going to be breaking down every individual thing that you need to know about this outbreak, from the intensity to the regional impacts and more. But before we get into it, make sure to click those like and subscribe buttons down below as it helps me out a lot, and we're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by Halloween. And let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, starting off this video by taking a look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook for the past couple of days, you'll notice that we've actually got a slight risk of severe weather in play from sections of southern Ohio all the way back through northeastern Mississippi. Now, this slight risk actually ended up busting pretty hard. We assumed that there may have been a tornado threat associated with some deep layer shear that was in place specifically across portions of Kentucky and eastern Tennessee, but that didn't end up playing out as storms were too clustery and instability was limited at best. So for right now, we're really just watching some heavy rainfall across portions of eastern Appalachia for the rest of the night, so we'll see what happens with that as we go over the next several hours. But going into tomorrow is where this big time severe weather and again potentially tornado event ends up taking place across portions of southern New England and even back into portions of the far northeastern United States. Now, if we take a look at our overall probabilities, you'll notice that it's sitting at a slight risk of severe weather going all the way from northeastern Maryland back through southern Maine. And this slight risk includes nearly 30 million people. This includes New York City, this includes Philadelphia, this includes Newark, Jersey City, Yonkers, and more. The marginal risk, that little 1 out of 5 risk going outside of that in the dark green zone, that includes everywhere from Baltimore to Charlotte, North Carolina, Boston, Washington, D.C., all the way back down through to Atlanta, Georgia. Now, our main tornado threat is actually going to be confined to much of southern New England. As of right now, we have a 2% tornado probability in place from sections of eastern PA back through extreme southern sections of Maine. And I would be willing to bet that this is going to be upgraded to a 5% tornado probability as we go into tomorrow, specifically across portions of southern New Hampshire and northern Massachusetts. And we're going to talk about why later. But before we do, it's important to note that this system is also going to bring a significant damaging wind threat, especially if our storm mode is linear, and even some big time hail can't be ruled out. We do have that large 5% risk extending all the way from areas just north of New York City back through to portions of far northern South Carolina. Now, as we mentioned, I would not be shocked to see this risk get upgraded to a 5% tornado probability, and here is why. This is a sounding taken from the 3Z HRRR, the most recent run of the HRRR at the time of filming, in southern portions of Maine, again, where we think we're going to have the greatest chance of seeing a couple of tornadoes. There will be convection in the area, and this is an incredibly tornadically primed environment. You've got 300 SRH, you've got 70 knots of deep layer shear, over 3,000 surface instability, nearly 250 joules per kilogram of CAPE within the first 3 kilometers of the atmosphere. Going down to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you take a look at lapse rates. They're okay, right? Now, I do potentially see a problem with that if our lapse rates do sit at somewhere between 5 and 6. I do definitely think that that could potentially prevent some upscale growth in some of these more significant severe thunderstorms, but I don't think that it's going to be enough to stop this incredibly tornadically primed environment, and I don't think a lot of people watching this are going to understand quite how extreme this is for southern New England unless I put it this way. In my 2 years, and actually almost 3 years now, of being in the weather community and forecasting every day, I have never seen a setup this potent this far north, at least in the northeastern United States. This is actually a very comparable setup to some of the events that we were seeing back in June across portions of South Dakota. But anyway, that aside, obviously a very potent sounding. Now, again, the HRRR model doesn't just have a good environment, it has that convection, because even if you've got the best environment in the world, you've got the April 27th environment times 10, if you don't get a rain shower, you're not going to see anything. Now, the HRRR has convection. It is somewhat scattered, and it is more linear than anything else. If something like this were to happen, I could definitely still see a couple of QLCS tornadoes, specifically across portions of Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire and Vermont, but I think it would mostly be a damaging wind threat, right? Now, if we go over to the NAM 3 kilometer model. The NAM is actually being a little bit less aggressive in terms of our kinematics, sitting at about 60 knots of deep layer shear. We've got just under 300 SRH. Instability still primed at 3,000 joules per kilogram of surface cape, 194 3 cape, which again is absurd. We've got a decently nice photograph, although it is definitely showing that little tiny lack of shear that we have compared to the HRRR model, and the lapse rates are still lacking, obviously, as well. Now, I would note that our temperature to dew point ratio, 72 to 77, is a little bit closer than what the HRRR wants, which is 72 to 79. Now, that may seem like a mundane detail at first, but that 2-degree difference can make a huge impact on whether or not storms are going to fire. So, we'll see what happens with that over time. If we get something a little bit warmer like what the HRRR wants, potentially there is that chance that we could end up seeing some more convective explosion across portions of southern Maine and northern New Hampshire. But anyway, again, still a very potent environment here that the NAM is presenting for us, specifically the NAM 3 kilometer model. And if we go over to said model and we take a look at the convection that it's showing, you'll notice that it's a little bit more discrete in nature. Now, overall, it is still very linear, and it's actually very long as well. You see that line there kind of stretching from southern and central portions of Maine all the way back down into North Carolina. But again, you have these individual supercells that fire kind of ahead of that line of storms across portions of northern New Jersey, even into areas like western Long Island, out into Vincent's territory, and potentially even in portions of northwestern Connecticut and central Massachusetts. And that's where I think our tornado threat will be prime, because again, obviously you can see things like quasi-linear convective system tornadoes, but they're much more common to see in these discrete, isolated little storms that are all by themselves. And for anybody asking about timing, the NAM model wants this to be a kind of 3 to 6 p.m. event. After you get past 6 p.m., you're mainly going to be looking at a downburst damaging wind threat across much of the mid-Atlantic region as well as far northern sections of Maine. I do potentially see a flash flooding threat arise with this system if we do see some of those heavier bands of rain develop. If we take a look at the total accumulated precipitation forecasted by the NAM model there, you'll notice some areas getting close to half a foot of expected precipitation, specifically across portions of central and northern New Jersey. So we'll see how that plays out, but again, obviously that's not going to be our primary threat that we begin to look out for with a system like this. Before we end off this video, I do want to quickly take a look at our watches, warnings, and advisories still currently in effect. We still do have a few severe thunderstorm watches that are in place for some of our counties in far northeastern Tennessee and southeastern Kentucky. These will likely be expired by the time you're watching this video. We've got some freeze warnings in place for portions of western North Dakota where overnight lows could dip down into the low 30s, and we've also got some, yes, you guessed it, red flag warnings across portions of Washington and Oregon, which, if you're not aware, is basically just another terminology for a burn ban. So make sure that you are any open burning. Make sure that you're protecting your flames and such. We do actually have a couple of flash flood warnings and flash flood advisories in portions of northeastern Texas and far southwestern Arkansas. This has been a multi-day storm complex that's actually brought some decent rainfall and precipitation to these areas that have needed it for a while, but in some areas it is a bit too much, and we're seeing that overaccumulation begin to occur, so make sure that you're staying safe if you're out there in those areas. But anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today, so thank you all for watching this forecast. Before we do end off, I do want to quickly thank all of our members. As always, you guys are what keep this channel running. If you do want to become a member, make sure to do so by clicking the link down in the description. You're going to get access to exclusive videos, early access to certain videos, shoutouts at the end of every forecast, custom stickers to use in live chats, and more. But yeah, other than that, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.